Hello, everybody. Good evening. I'm glad to see such a good turnout for such an exciting topic, short-term rentals. So essentially tonight, I'm just going to give a brief presentation. In my mind, it's brief. If I'm really wordy, I'm very sorry. But a brief presentation about our STR registration policy that we're looking to adopt. In short, it's just that. It's a registration policy, you provide some information, it's a $25 fee on an annual basis. It's not meant to be overly intrusive, it's not meant to be overly cumbersome. You'll be interfacing with a real person that works at City Hall for the people of Bastrop. You'll go to Dev Services whenever you do your registration process and interface with one of our 3 techs. So with that being said, I'll get into the PowerPoint, and then after that, there will be a Q&A session, so you can ask your questions and we can answer them. The idea and the motivation behind this town hall was, well, I know anytime you go to adopt something like an STR policy, a lot of times there can be some fear, some just worry, some concern, right, from the public of what is the city trying to do? How far are they reaching into my operation? What am I going to have to do now? I understand, I've done this for a really long time. I know how the public can feel. And so the idea was, okay, before we take this before council for adoption, let's have a town hall with the public of Bastrop so that people who are truly concerned or who live this life of having an STR can come in and ask their questions, and we can be as transparent as possible. We can answer your questions. I might not give you an answer you like, but I'll give you an answer that's honest. And so that was the motivation behind this town hall, was to meet with the people of Bastrop who will be affected by this so you can understand where we're coming from, and we make sure that what we take forward works for our community. So with that being said, essentially, I'm assuming well, I don't want to be overly personal, but I'm assuming most people in here actually own a STR that showed up. That's probably why, or live next to it. So I won't get into what a short-term rental is because I'm sure you probably know that, but if you don't, it's up there on the screen for you. But essentially, they are defined by a lodging accommodation that is rented for less than a period of 30 days, right? And there's different categories, there's different terminology. So our definition that we're going to include in our ordinance kind of uses different language that some people might use to wonder if they qualify as an STR. A short-term rental is not a hotel, it's not a motel, it's not a bed and breakfast, okay? It's not any of those things. It's truly a residence of some sort. It can also be an apartment unit or a condominium that is rented out for a period of less than 30 consecutive days. So if you fall within that definition, you qualify as an STR. Now, what's the purpose of this ordinance? What is the city trying to do? We are looking to adopt an ordinance, essentially, that will ask people who have STRs to register with the city. Why do we want to do that? What's our motivation? What is the city trying to, get out of it, essentially? Well, first motivation, primary motivation, all the time, every time, is life safety. We want to understand where the STRs are within our community, more so that we can have an identified local contact person that's associated with that STR, so that in the event of an emergency, we have a way to get a hold of them if there needs to be some kind of evacuation that occurs. Like, for instance, if we have, God forbid, another 2011 wildfire, if we have a database of people who have local contact persons available for STRs, they can get that information to their guests or their residents who might not be plugged into our social media networks, who might not follow us on Facebook, who might not be aware of our evacuation rights. So that's first and foremost, life safety. Second, collection of hot taxes. Yes, that's a thing. Now, the good news is that you're required by state law to do hot taxes. That's not a law that the city is enacting. That is already a law that is in place currently. So we've not added any additional regulation or anything like that. That's already in existence. It's a state law as is. However, the benefit of hot taxes for the city itself is that hot taxes help fund community assets. What are some really meaningful community assets that we have that are very valuable to us? The Bastrop Historical Society and Visitor Center. I don't know if you've ever been there. If you haven't, it's fabulous. Your guests, they will love it. I've taken my child there. I really loved it. Another one, the Bastrop Opera House. That's another wonderful community asset that helps, that part of their funding does come from hot taxes. Another one, the Kerr Community Center. So the way that the city uses hot taxes is to help fund community assets. It's not just the pot of money that we like to take and just, spend on things that are not meaningful to the public. These are meaningful assets to the public. And then, of course, code compliance, parking, noise, lighting. These things matter to the quality of life of the people of Bastrop. They also matter to the quality of your guests' encounter. If we have ordinances that are being followed and rules that are being followed, not only will the citizens that live here enjoy their stay, but so will your guests. Okay, so I know I've gotten this question, and this is always a meaningful question. What's the city going to require to register an STR? What do you guys want from me? So I tried to keep it super simple and not overreaching. The address of the STR, owner or operator contact information, any affiliated marketing platforms, and that's more so the city can be aware of marketing platforms that we might not know exist. I know about Airbnb, I know about VRBO, but just like we're in the digital age, new platforms are popping up every time, or all the time. So if we can be aware of those, we can look into them and make sure that people that are listed on these platforms that we might not be aware of are registering with the city. Okay, contact information, once again, for that 24-hour local person, that point of contact that we can reach out to make sure that everyone stays safe and that we just have a way of getting a hold of a person that's responsible for that structure. A statement agreeing to remain in compliance with our rules. And by the way, compliance with our rules just means the rules we already have adopted. We already have adopted the fire code. We already have adopted the International Building Code. Sometimes people who own a STR might not know of these codes, and so this is just an opportunity for us to educate the public in case you don't know about these rules, what the rules are so that everyone can understand. And then another one is, of course, the number of bedrooms. That's important for us to know so that we can kind of understand just how many guests might potentially be visiting the site. Proposed number of occupants, and the number of off-street parking spaces. That one's important too because at council, there's been a lot of talk about just the need for structures, for houses, for residences to have enough parking on site to host the number of cars that are there. So we just want to make sure that if you're having people visit your STR, totally fine, great, but that there's adequate parking on site to house those cars so they're not spilling out into the street, creating traffic problems and things like that. And then, of course, also, sorry, I skipped one, verification that they're in compliance with Chapter 11 of the Code of Ordinances related to hot taxes. Once again, that's already a code that's already adopted. It's not a new one that's being adopted. It was and has been enacted. It's just awareness of that code, because sometimes if you have a STR, you don't know that that code exists. So it's truly meant to be just a touch point. Hey, welcome to the City of Bastrop. We're so happy to have you. Here's some rules. Here's some information. Can we get some of your contact information? And, so just a little bit of information, a $25 fee, and then that's it. We're trying to be kind of, involved, but not like helicopter parent, right? It's just that fine balance. And so another question that I'm sure people wonder is, what will a STR be required to provide on site? And so we are going to ask that a registration number be posted at the entrance of the front facade. I think that's meaningful because, A, if I'm a new person coming to town and I'm looking to acquire a piece of property, if I see that sticker, I can know that I'm buying next to an STR, and that might not matter on my buying decision. If I have children or whatever, that might affect my decision to buy there or not buy there, and I think it's just like a fair playing field. Another one is that's also going to help you advertise your business. If there's people that are visiting in town and they're like, man, I just really love this town, I want to stay overnight, and then they see these little stickers and they're like, what's that about? Oh, that's an STR. Oh, cool. How can I get a hold of them? Sure, here's their information. One thing we also are going to do that I didn't put in this PowerPoint is we are going to help you guys advertise. So our, kind of partnership that we have is that we are going to create a map that will list all of the registered STRs with the city. So when people visit our website or any of our public resources, they can have access to that map and they'll see where the STRs are and then hopefully maybe reach out to one of you guys. And so that, it's kind of a symbiotic relationship, if you will. Another thing that they will be, or the STRs will be required to provide on site will be essentially a smoke and carbon monoxide detectors, fire alarms, at least one Type 5 ABC fire extinguisher with a valid inspection date, and the bedrooms must have working exit windows. That all speaks to life safety, and I imagine that anyone that owns an STR probably is totally okay with that, because that just protects the life safety of the people staying there. That's the whole motivation behind that. They're safe. If something happens, they have a way to either put out the fire or get out the house. And then on site, right, for your guests, just we'll ask that you have a floor plan showing the bedroom, other living spaces, and just the emergency evacuation routes. And that's just, once again, in case of an emergency, the guests know how to get out in a quick, easy, safe, expeditious manner. And then we'll ask that you keep a copy of local regulations and restrictions related to parking, noise, water conservation, and emergency management protocols. We'll provide you with that. So if you come into the office and you're like, hey, I need some of this information, we can print that off for you and give it to you. We're not going to make you go on some kind of wild goose chase to find that information. We'll be more than happy to provide it for you. How much will it cost to register an STR? $25. Final fee, $25. How much will it cost to renew an STR registration? $25. We just are trying to stick with that $25 fee. So it's not meant to be cost prohibitive. The city's not going to make a lot of money off of this registration. It's truly a process just so that we can understand our environment. We can understand what STRs are there. We can help you advertise your STR. And we can just ensure that people are complying with local rules, laws, things of that nature. That's truly the motivation. I've had some people ask, well, how will I have to register? What does that mean if I have to register? We have 3 super wonderful techs in the Development Services Department. They're there, and you can walk in, and they'll help you navigate what's called MyGov. MyGov is our permitting software, and you'll go through MyGov, and you'll register online and pay the $25, and that's that. They'll help you upload the information. We'll also create a checklist, and the checklist will have kind of just the required information, and that's just going to be so you can have that in hand and know what you need to bring whenever you come to visit us. If you have information that's missing off the checklist, not a big deal. We'll just let you know, like, hey, we need this and this, and then you can always just come back and go through the process. We're totally about customer service. The goal is that you interact with people that work at City Hall. It's not a management company. It's not a third-party company that's doing this. It's us who work for you guys. We're going to help you register. We also have a kiosk in the lobby at Development Services. So if you don't have access to technology for some reason, not a problem. We can provide you with a computer, and we can help you access the system that you'll need to access to register your STR. So we're truly trying to be helpful here. Now, a registration will be denied if false information is provided, if you're overdue on taxes and fees. I had a really good question, too, about the taxes and fees and being overdue. Whenever you come to register, we're just looking at the current year's hot taxes. We are not going to go back 2, 3, 4, 6 years to make sure you've paid hot taxes. Okay. We're just looking at the current year. We will hop on, and if they are good to go, we are good to go. And that's it. We're not doing this like deep dive into 6 years of history or anything like that. We're just, are you in compliance today? Yeah, great. Okay, cool. Let's register. Let's move on. So. And then if a structure for a particular STR owner has repeat violations, at that point the city might decide to not issue that registration. We're very much about, we want to encourage compliance though here. We want to communicate to you what's going on. The goal isn't to not issue the registrations. So we do also have a way to remedy registrations that may have been denied. So once again, the goal is compliance. So here we go. What happens if a registration is denied? There's an appeals process. I built this in, and I've tried to make it pretty simple. First level of denials with the Director of Development Services. If he decides, hey, you've met some of the criteria for not issuing a registration or you're in violation of some criteria, you can appeal to the city manager. The city manager can hear your case. You will also have an opportunity to remedy any things that might need to be taken care of. If you don't have a fire extinguisher at the time of applying for it, you can go get one between the time of denial and meeting with the city manager, and if you have that fire extinguisher, you'll be good to go. So the idea is to work with the community to make this possible. So they can appeal to the city manager. The city manager can choose to affirm or reverse the denial. And then if they get denied at the city manager's level, you can also appeal to council. Now, council will be the final deciding body, but that is at least 3 levels of opportunity that someone has to get whatever they need in order to make this happen. So once again, we're trying to encourage compliance. We're not trying to make it impossible for someone to register the STR. And then this is like one of my final slides. Current STR tax stats, so just some current statistics and this goes back to hot taxes already being a thing that exists. It's not something new that the city's doing. In fiscal year 24, there was 42 STRs that reported to the city, and we collected $54,204 of hot taxes. So far in fiscal year 25, 24 have come forward, and we've collected $10,424. We essentially get 7% of the taxes that come back to us. And then here's just a breakdown that hot taxes include, but are not limited to hotels, motels, cottages, cabins, bed and breakfast, country homes, vacation rental homes, glamping tents, which include a bed, tree houses, condominiums, garage apartments, a room in an owner-occupied house, etc., if the stay is less than 30 days. And that's a definition from the state. So, my final thoughts. We're essentially seeking to create an ordinance. Yes, it's a registration process. Yes, that means that you will interface with the city. Yes, there is a fee, but we're still seeking to create a registration process that works for the people of Bastrop, that isn't overly burdensome, that isn't very complicated to get through, and that the fee is nominal in nature. It's $25. And then just once again to reiterate, the reasons, the motivation for the city behind moving forward on this registration process is we care about life safety. We care about the collection of hot taxes because it helps fund community assets that are meaningful to us here in the community. And then code compliance. We want to make sure that appropriate parking is occurring, that there's not any violations of the noise ordinance, that people aren't able to get to sleep at night because of, something happening next door, that the lighting isn't being intrusive and so bright that it's exceeding our lighting ordinance, just things like that. So with that, I will open up the question and answer session. We don't have a mic that's portable, so if you want to shout from the audience, I will reiterate in the mic, or you can come up to the mic and ask the question. Either one. Come on. You want to just ask? Okay.
Can't contact the City of Bastrop, you have to come home to the county. So, is that Airbnb have to register with the city?
This ordinance is strictly for the city limits of Bastrop at this time. We are only looking at the city proper, city limits. Colin, can you pull up a map showing the city limits of Bastrop? All right, I have this really amazing IT guy right behind that little area. He's gonna pull it up. That's who? That's a good question. All right, next question. Yes, sir, Mr. Ross.
Can you talk about enforcement if someone is not in compliance or does not register? What are the steps that are going to be taken?
Yes, so this is Mr. Cowie's territory because he's over the code enforcement personnel that we have, but essentially you would call in and you would file a complaint with our code enforcement department that Mr. Cowie's over, and then we would take steps to investigate that. Mr. Cowie, I'll let you speak to that.
So James Cowie, Development Services, as Viviana mentioned earlier, one, we got everything's in-house. We have 3 development techs that will help you through the process. We've got inspectors. So the first goal is understand that we'll work with you through the process. But as with any ordinance, if you don't comply, there's two issues, is not complying with this ordinance, not paying taxes as far as your hot taxes. So as with any ordinance, we'd look up the property owner, put them on notice. Again, we like using the word code compliance instead of enforcement. We want to do everything we can to give you a chance to comply with the requirements. But if you don't comply, it goes through the typical notification. If we have to go to court, we go to court. But we want to work with you and get you in compliance.
Yes, sir, Mr. Moss.
Got a question.
Okay.
Is it possible for the city to send us out notifications we need to re-register? Is that possible? We have software to do that? And one thing, the issue, the reason I point that out is that you can do that for the hot taxes server, reminder to pay your hot taxes. The county does that, but the city does not, except this thing.
So we do, so the cool thing is that whenever you register in MyGov, your information will go in and we can't actually export a table and we can't actually, well, we can do it in two different ways. Okay, this isn't, I'm thinking out loud. Sorry, yes, there is a way we can do that. There's a business module and essentially it will notify you once your license needs to be renewed. Now, it would be in the business module that's called license, but it's still just a registration. So vernacular, but yes. Edie, so how do you get notified on collection of the taxes? Do you just see them as they come in quarterly?
The issue is you can either pay it quarterly or you pay it monthly, depending upon your volume.
Okay.
The city and the county.
Oh,
The county sends out a note, just an email to you, says, oh, by the way, your hot taxes are due about the 20th if you're on a monthly thing, or at the end of the quarter. It's helpful, it's just a reminder, hey,
CM Trevino.
I'm just saying, can you repeat the question into the mic or an answer? Staff, please go to the mic, so the folks at home who are watching.
So this is our CFO, Miss Edie. She's very smart.
We use a platform called LocalGov, and they collect our taxes, and then it hits the bank, and we match the reports up with what they have said that they've collected. So I believe actually your name was on the report that I saw earlier today. So I can see where I do not know actually how, you have to register with LocalGov to be able to pay your taxes. Or maybe it starts with an A, but they collaborate together.
well, it's two different things for the
Yes.
county and the city.
Okay.
Same thing. You have to use two different programs to do that. I'm just saying the county sends out a notice that, the taxes are due, blah, blah, blah. And that's very helpful, because I forget time to time. And so the city can do that, be helpful.
Well, we will definitely check into that, and I can see what we can do about that. Yes, yes.
So essentially, he was asking about, can notice be sent out for reminders? And in MyGov, we can definitely send out notices to remind you to re-register, to come back in and renew that registration. And then we're going to investigate the possibility about notification for hot tax. Did I encapsulate that correctly? Yes. Okay, and then we're going to look into the requirements for monthly to quarterly for hot taxes. Yes, sir. All right, next question. This is fun. Yes, ma'am.
Why do we have a registration and a occupancy permit as well? We're accomplishing the same thing as far as life safety is.
Are you talking about the certificate of occupancy? Okay, so the certificate of occupancy, that's a good question. So she asked, why do we have a registration process, or are we attempting to adopt a registration process? And then we also have the certificate of occupancy process. So the certificate of occupancy process truly happens usually when a structure is built, right? You get a C of O inspection. And then sometimes if there's a change in ownership, there's a COO inspection. James, are we currently doing CO inspections for people that move into residences though? No, okay. So, yeah. Yeah, so the gap is that, let's say a new house was built, right? And then a C of O was issued for that new house. And then let's say that house changes hands 5 times, right? And on the 5th owner, they decide to do an STR. At that point, that C of O inspection has not been revisited, and it will not be revisited each time that house changes hands. It's different from a commercial structure. A commercial structure, if you have a change in ownership, a change in business, you will get a CO inspection each time. So this STR creates an opportunity to just touch base with that new local owner and just kind of make them aware of any of our rules and regs, and then make sure too that since the, I guess, initial issuance of that C of O that might have been done 5 years ago or 10 years ago, that the windows still work, that that fire extinguisher has a valid inspection date, things like that. So that's the difference between the two. Okay, any other questions? Yes, sir, Mr. Crouch.
Sticker that you talked about putting on the front of the house. So is the city gonna develop some type of a plaque, like a historical marker plaque, so it doesn't look real tacky, having a little sticker on the front of your house? Because you said something about,
Yes.
it being a positive thing, so your neighbors would know that your house is a short-term rental, but it could also be a negative thing, depending on whose eyes you're looking at that. And so, what is your sticker going to look like for the house?
So I have not gotten into the design guidelines of the sticker, but I like what you're thinking. No, but I truly understand the merit in your comment. And it's that if we're going to do something and we're have someone display something, especially in our beautiful historic community, to the front facade of our structure, that it should be thoughtful and meaningful. CM Carrillo has her hand up.
Why do you need to be on the front? It can't be inside.
Well, that's easiest just to see the STR on the front facade.
So I'm going to give you an example from a coastal city that has a sticker that's about 2 by 2 at the front that really isn't visible unless fire or somebody shines a light on it. We're prone to fires here. If the people in the house, number one, don't know how to get out, or too afraid to get out, don't know the routes, don't know whatever, fires going up and down, can at least flash that the sticker's there. We know to go knock on that door, help you get out. The same for any event. It's not meant to be a gaudy sticker. It's not meant to tell your neighbors, I'm here, move out, because they'll be able to get that from a map. It's just really the ability to be able to locate who's there. Front door, front window, any place fire can easily flash a light from the street is there, right in.
So it's not visible until they flash, you see flash by.
Yeah, it's not super gaudy.
So then it's kind of understood, you got something to do.
Yes. That there's a kid in the bedroom.
Okay. All right. That was a good question. All right. Any other questions? You don't have to ask questions if you don't want to. Like, don't feel pressure. If this is good and you're satisfied, we can, in the town hall meeting, if you have more questions, we can keep going. It's up to you guys. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so your guess, we say we have 4 good parking spaces, but they decide they're gonna park in the street, in the front. Is that gonna be an issue now, or are you just asking that we ensure that we have available spots, but what they do, whether they park there or not, what happens?
So, no. No, we are going to ask that you have the adequate amount of on-site parking spots provided for the level of business that you offer for your STR. But no, we're not going to, if someone decides to park in front, yes, sir.
How many parking spaces
Per
per bedroom?
bedroom. Yes. Okay, so Mr. Moss is alluding to a recent council meeting that we had where we recently adopted citywide the requirement that every bedroom needs a parking space. And so it's already a rule that's being put in place, but essentially that's what we're going to look for, is if you have 4 bedrooms in that house, 4, to your point, 4 on-site parking spaces. And if it has a garage, the garage counts as two. So if it's a two-car garage, a true two-car garage. Yes, sir, Mr. Crouch.
What are your fire requirements? So say you mentioned a while ago about fire extinguishers and hotels, and that type of structure has different requirements for fire. So what are your fire requirements for, say, a 2 or 3 story home in historic Bastrop?
So right now, the way that the ordinance is written is just to have the carbon monoxide, the smoke detectors, the alarms, and then that type 1 ABC fire extinguisher with a recent inspection. And that's, oh, an ingress, correct, and a working exit window. Yes. And yes, an emergency route. So what's already adopted? We're not. No, I mean, no, sir, your windows cannot be caulked shut. That's scary, and no. Please don't. Yes, sir.
Will there be a limit to the amount of STRs that are allowed in the city?
Not currently, no. Okay. Yes, sir. That was.
Has a fire extinguisher that I purchased, probably from Costco. So, is there a company that, is that something that would get certified yearly or annually? Who does that?
So our ACM was our former fire chief, and he is the most qualified man in the room to answer this question.
Yes. So yes, your fire extinguisher, the ABC 1B fire extinguisher has to be certified annually by a certified company. Those companies there's several in town. Most of them come out of Austin. There's no local company that does it. But there are a few companies that have a small office or come to town regularly to do several of those. If you reach out to the fire department, they have a list. They can provide you that list. And that list has all the various different agencies that will do those for you. But the fire department will do the inspection of your entire deal, but they're going to be looking for that tag that goes onto the extinguisher. Yes, ma'am. Oh, yeah. The question he asked was, is there an inspection that has to be done to the fire extinguisher, and it has to be done by a specific company. And those specific companies are, we do have a list, and they can be provided by the fire department. Yeah. Some of the general ones are like Fire King. There's Fire Troll, Firetron. There's several of them. Well, so if you buy a new one, it does have to be tagged by the company before it's put in use. So in this case, it's just every business within the city has the same requirements. If you purchase a fire extinguisher specifically for your home, it does not have to meet any requirements. So residential has different than a commercial, and STRs are kind of regulated within both. And so an STR is regulated in the fire code as somewhat of a B occupancy or business occupancy, and those have those requirements for the fire extinguishers. So, and there's a breakdown. If you go to the fire department's website on the city's page, they have that fire extinguisher breakdown. There's a very specific page that breaks down the fire extinguishers and how those are certified and who's certifiable.
So
Cool.
residential extinguishers aren't required to have a tag?
Correct. Yeah, if your personal home by itself is not required, but if you have an STR, the STR is by the fire department regulated as if it was a commercial residence or a commercial business. Does that make sense? All commercial businesses within town are required to have a certain number of fire extinguishers, and they're required to be certified annually and every year, once a year. Yes.
So the question I have is, does that mean that we have to purchase a certain volume or a certain size or a certain type that can be tested?
Yes. Yeah, so I'll repeat. So the question is do you have to purchase for an STR, do you have to purchase a certain type of extinguisher? And yes, you do. There is a specific type of extinguisher that you have to purchase. It's a certain size, and it's listed out on the fire department's website. It's like a 1B, 2A something type fire extinguisher. 5, yes. But it's, Colin, can you pull up the fire department's webpage? Now, you could have as many, like some STRs have one of the larger ones, and then they may put that in a specific location, and then they have the smaller residential ones that they may keep under the sink, or some of the more like easier locations to put, but it just, the code just says you have to have one fire extinguisher for your residence. Go to fire marshal, click there. Click, you gotta, there's like a drop down, yeah, fire extinguisher information. Yeah, so here's the fire extinguisher information here. Colin, go down, keep going, keep going, keep going. That portable fire extinguishers for commercial business use. That's the listing there, and you'll see that it has a link to the number of the fire marshals that has the listing of the different companies, and then you see the portable. Colin, go up one right there. Whoop, go down. That paragraph right there, the one paragraph up. Highlight that. That is the type of fire extinguishers. You see that 3A, 4 something, 2A, 10. When you go to, they have these at Lowe's. Those extinguishers are at Lowe's. They're available at Lowe's. You can go purchase them. They're just not certified when you purchase them, so you have to get them certified after you purchase them. But you go to Lowe's and you can pick up, you just have to pick up one of those types. And they'll be listed on the type of fire extinguisher. They're usually about yay tall and about yay round. There's not one. There's one in the hallway here. But pretty much every...
Bring that certification to you?
No.
Or is that just, you just take our word for it that you have to?
No, so the question is, you have to bring the certification to the fire department? No, so the company that you contact will come to you, or you take the extinguisher to them, whichever's easier. Some companies, I will tell you, some companies charge you for them coming to you, so it may be easier for you to, if you're running to Austin, or if they have somewhere in LaGrange, somewhere Giddings has one. You can take the extinguisher and take it to them, and they're going to put a tag. They're going to tag it. They're going to put a very specific, it's a little blue, sometimes green tag that gets mounted on and attached to the fire extinguisher. That tag needs to remain with the extinguisher. And that's what the fire department is going to look for, is that little tag. And they'll stamp it with the date, and the fire department's going to look for that date. They'll stamp it the date that it was issued, and the fire department's going to look and see if that's within the year. So you'll have 1 year from that date before it needs to be certified again.
Won't you touch on why they're inspected every year, because they go bad?
Yeah. The building officials tell me why to explain why. So the reason they're inspected is those extinguishers have a life expectancy on the extinguisher itself. And so even though like your home ones have the same life expectancy, usually they're around 10 years. But remember that those extinguishers are like compressed cylinders. They've got compressed air inside of them. They are prone to rusting. And so when they rust, they need to be certified. And so what they're going to do, they're going to take them. One, the powder that's inside tends to cake. And so if you try to use it, and then let's say it's 5 years and that powder's caked, it's not going to go off. It's not going to be any good. The other thing is the compressed air may leak out sometimes over time, and so when you go to use it, it's not going to be useful. So that annual is a certification of, 1, that the powder's good, 2, that the compressed air is inside of it, and 3, to make sure that that container has not been past its life expectancy, and it could explode at some point. It could be misused or anything like that. So that's what the certification is for. And every business within the whole city is required to do this commercially. So everywhere you see a fire extinguisher, that tag is supposed to be on there, and it's supposed to be done annually. So the city does not, yes. So and here's where you get into like weirdness between codes, okay? So you have the city, as far as the regulation portion of how we're regulating, I'm pointing at her because how we're regulating the STRs, we're not treating them as commercial, okay? But the international code that has been adopted by the city, that was adopted in 2019, does have some portions of regulations for STRs. They're built into the code, and the reason they're built into the code is because of the life safety aspect that she spoke of that they are in the category of transient, not homeless, but transient living, just like hotels and those types of things where people come to there with an expectation of a higher level of life safety. And so they're regulated in the fire code and they're regulated in the building code. And so, yes, they're treated in commercial in this aspect, but we're not treating them in commercial as far as the registration, the tracking, all that other stuff. This is just always been there. Like, you have to follow those rules always over here, unless council amends those and takes those rules away, which it would be highly unlikely. And so, because they're life safety codes, they're built into our codes already. And so we're not going as far as Austin, where Austin has super regulation on STRs, right? We're not going to go that far. But what is already in place with the building codes and the fire codes, those are they're already in there and they're regulated. Is that?
Prohibition is very vague on that paragraph that you have highlighted, and on a commercial application, you usually put them next to a door, entrance door, going, coming.
So I think if you scroll through there, it kind of tells you kind of where, so the fire department's going to look for them usually by an exit. And they're not as regulated as a business. So a business is required to have one every 75 foot. So if you go into like Walmart, you'll see them all over the place. It's every 75 foot. They're supposed to be and so a house usually is not greater than 75 foot. So that's why there's only one in there. The reason we don't like them being underneath the sink, and we rather than be at an exit, because you tend to, as a human, when an incident happens, your first instinct is to run or to go, right, to get away. And so, yeah, you're more than likely not going to run to the sink. But the reason most people put them there is because they're close to the cooking surfaces, right? That's usually the cooking surface area. But we recommend to put them by an exit somewhere.
Well, the reason I'm asking is because the fire extinguishers that it's requiring are big red.
Yeah. Yes. And
Aren't very attractive on the inside of a house.
completely understand.
That's why I was asking. You have to put one at the front door and at the back door and in the kitchen. Now you've got three.
No, not at every exit, just at one exit. It only specifies one exit, and then what it does specify is there's a plan that has to be posted. That plan should have where that fire extinguisher is located within your STR.
So what's the requirement for the plan? How detailed does that have to be? Can it be a chicken scratch on a piece of notebook?
It just has to be like, it doesn't have to be nothing fancy, but it just needs to be the layout of your floor plan, right? It has to have your floor plan. Yeah, it doesn't have to no dimensions or anything. It's just you can get on the computer and draw out the lines, and it's just an estimated floor plan, and it just needs to have some arrows that show your exits and some arrows that show where your deal is. If you need help with those, our fire marshal, I'm sure he's going to yell at me, but our fire marshal can help you through that process. And Gary, I think I helped you through with y'all's, if I'm not mistaken. Do what? I'm sorry. Yeah, and so and let me say, so this requirement isn't just for STRs. This requirement is if you're adopting. This requirement's in place for adoptions. This requirement's in place for foster. The same thing has to happen for all of those. So when we go out annually and do inspections for foster parents. It's a part of the state regulations. So we currently do not inspect every year. We have the STRs on like a 3-year, sometimes 5-year rotation. It depends on the usage and that kind of stuff. We don't have the staff to do it annually. At some point when we get the staff for the fire marshal's office, I'm sure there will be a time where we do it annually. We do what we call, so the fire marshal's office has like tiers. So you have your high priority, high life hazards, safety, like your schools, your large occupancies like Film Alley, Lowe's, Home Depot. Those are like high life hazards buildings. Walmart's one of them, HEB. We see those every year. The fire marshal will go annually to go to those. And then there's some other ones like the nursing homes that are required. There's some state regulated ones that are required to see us annually. Then you'll have the lower tier that see us every 2 years, and then there's some that see us 3 years, and then some at 5 years. It's just because of staffing we have to do it that way. So, Yes, sir. Yeah, and so you'll get, yes. And so he's holding up the documents you get from the fire department. Those are that's your certificate of occupancy on one side, and your other side is your fire certification occupancy load that just goes with it, that the fire department will come out and do for your STRs. You can, yeah, absolutely. The CO, yes, the CO is the one time. And then the after that is your registration sticker is going to be what's in place of that. Yeah, yes. Yeah, and so that's part of the regulation is now that you're gonna register, we're gonna see you, and then the fire department will come out and do those, come out and visit with you. So.
Each application will have a fire department inspection that's going to go along with it.
Yes. Yeah, the fire department inspection. Yes, the fire department will have an inspection that comes along with the registration. So part of the registration, when you come and register, they're going to ask you, have you had your inspection done by the fire department? And,
You have the ability to add documents to the upload, like
yes.
stickers for the.
Yes, yeah, you can upload photos. You can upload, and same with the fire department. The fire department has the same request portal. So when you go in and request for a fire inspection, they have the same thing, and you can upload your stickers already ahead of time, and that way when the fire marshal gets there, he can just quickly check off, and it'll be a real quick, takes probably 10 to 15 minutes inspection. They're going to make sure your windows are open, too.
Will the city provide a package for that last bullet point that's on the screen?
Yes.
For restrictions related to parking, noise ordinance, water conservation, and emergency management protocol?
Yes, so we absolutely can provide it, and I think that it would behoove us to do that for customer service. You can't expect someone to go kind of dig that out of, the ordinances and things like that. So,
So when you pay your $25, you get your thing, when you pick up your certificate of occupancy and the other thing, then you can get that packet and then have it there for your
Available.
yes, sir. No, absolutely. Yeah.
So what you're gonna do is sticker box to everybody, STRs.
The what, I'm sorry?
Certificate of occupancy.
So the certificate of occupancy, so for the certificate of occupancy, you will get, yeah, so on your first, if you've never registered, you've never been inspected, you've never gone through that process, you will go through that for the first time, and you'll get the building official to come out, you'll get the fire marshal to come out, and you'll get one of those. I think it's like $25 as well for that first time, one-time inspection. It's in addition to, but it's only one time, that's, as we said, the one time if you haven't ever done it. And some have and some haven't. It just depends. I've seen some. Do what? I think it will. Are you looking?
Yeah.
I thought it was $25. Maybe that's the fire department's for some CO inspections. It's been a while. I've been out of the game for a little bit. I did. Any other questions while she's looking that up? Anything else? Yes.
I had a resident send me questions who couldn't be here. Have there been any complaints or complaints about?
You have that?
Yeah, I have that one. Here, look through the fee schedule, please. No, not to my knowledge, not at this time. This was just a request of just different members of the public, just understanding that we're getting a large influx of new people. A lot of investors are very interested in this area because of some notable names that are now in this area. And so to just kind of, to get ahead of that and kind of put something in place that helps us understand our environment, we decided to come up with this before it becomes a huge issue, right? Like the idea is we want to be proactive, not reactive. And I do have the questions that your resident asked right here. I can read them aloud. I can give you this email. It's up to you. Okay, I love it. So I know that I'll leave the one that Ms. Sylvia responded to you directly on for that. Okay. So One of the questions that a resident asked is, how will this ordinance be implemented? Will it be a new department, staff, or third-party contractor? What does the step-by-step process look like for implementation? And we spoke to that earlier, that this will be an in-house activity. It's going to be implemented by staff. So we're going to adopt the ordinance. We're going to help walk people through the registration process. It'll be 100% in-house, real people that work for the city. It's not going to be a third-party agency that we farm people over to and things like that. As far as process goes, well, the first step in the process was this town hall meeting, because I wanted to meet with the people of Bastrop who will be affected by this, to hear your thoughts, concerns, get feedback. After that, we'll move forward to adoption. After adoption, then it'll be implementation. You will have 60 days from the date of adoption to kind of get your affairs in order. If you need to get your window working, or if you need to obtain a fire extinguisher, if you need someone to help you draw up the plan, you'll have 60 days to do that. Then after that, you'll come in and visit with the development services tech, and we'll help walk you through the process. If in the meantime you need a checklist, we'll have a checklist ready to hand out to you so you can know what information you'll need to have gathered whenever you come registered. So that's the implementation process. Another question they asked is, what's the projected annual revenue, both for registrations and hotel occupancy taxes? And that goes back to this slide that I actually inserted this slide as a result of that question, because I thought it was good. And so essentially, right, if we had, give me 1 second. So essentially, if we had right there 42 times 25, so the city would make, if we had another 42 people come and register, that's $1,050 for the city. So it's once again, the registration, it's not meant to be a big cash cow for the city or anything like that. So that was that question. And then you just asked the next one, where they asked, have substantial citizen safety concerns or complaints been submitted? Once again, not at this time. We are trying to be proactive, not reactive. Okay, so the next one was, Airbnb pays the state occupancy taxes monthly. Does any of the money collected and paid get distributed back to local jurisdictions? States on multiple occasions have declined to regulate with legislation. And so I actually phoned a friend for this answer, and what I found out was that if monthly tax, if monthly tax is less than $500, then the entity or Airbnb is only required to pay quarterly. The state occupancy tax rate is 6%, but none of that is returned to the cities. So there's that. The next question they asked was, the ordinance goes into effect 60 days after council approval. Registration, issuance, or denial granted with occupancy taxes current. This makes the ordinance retroactive based off of unidentifiable, unsubstantiated information. And so, while yes, it is correct, all taxes must be paid in order to receive the registration, once again, we're just going to look at that current tax year. We're not going to retroactively go back 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years to see if you have been paying hot taxes. We're going to take it at face value for what it's worth. You've come in, your hot taxes are current, we'll help you register, and then, move on. Oops, sorry about that. Move on. So there was that one. All right. A couple more questions. The next question was, there are concerns that a registration would provide a paper trail for the appraisal district to deny homestead exemptions or age exemptions. Research indicates that short-term rentals are classified as residential dwellings and therefore safe from such action. Can you please talk about this? So I called the appraisal district this afternoon, and I had a talk with Ms. Fawn Collins, who was very informative. She works for the appraisal district, and this is what I found out. So essentially, as long as a homeowner can prove that that home was not rented for more than 50% of the year, so for not more than 6 months, this will not affect the homestead exemption. It's only after you start renting out the house for more than 6 months at a time that it affects the homestead exemption. So you can, in fact, be a homeowner, have a homestead exemption, and still qualify for that as long as you're renting out the house less than 50% of the year. So there was that answer. And then another question they asked is this ordinance creating a problem that does not exist? And I don't think so. I think it's creating a process that doesn't exist, not a problem. And then the final question was, Could it cost the city more than it hopes to gain financially? And my response to that is the goal is not financial gain, hence the $25 registration fee. The goal is to make sure that we understand what is happening with our city limits so that we can respond appropriately. And that was the end of the question. Yes, ma'am.
I thought of another one.
Sure.
So people have their homes and say they have an ADU, so maybe their home isn't rented, but the ADU is rented more than 50%. I wonder how the Central Appraisal District would perceive that since it's on the same property ID. That's probably a pretty common, pardon? I guess this is probably a pretty common arrangement.
So essentially, from what the appraisal district explained, is that if it's rented for more than 50% of the year, it does affect the homestead. And so, but I mean, that's a unique situation where I get what you're saying. If you have an ADU and you're permanently occupying the primary dwelling, but then renting out the ADU more than 50%, how does that affect? And I can research that and absolutely look into it. Sure. That was a good one. Okay. Yes, ma'am, Ms. Meyer.
Maybe how will they check for compliance in the city limits? Like, is there will you check Airbnbs to see, like, what is the process of that?
Yes, ma'am. So what we'll start to do is we actually have someone by the name of, and I hope I can say this, Mr. Cowie, Miss Coy, who's actually recently been helping us just kind of look through the VRBO, Airbnb, things like that, and we'll look at basically addresses that are listed within the city limits to see if they are out there but not registering, and then we'll just send them a friendly note saying, hey, by the way, we have a registration process. Please come in. We're super friendly. More than happy to help you. And so, but yes, ma'am, we will be looking at resources. Yes, ma'am. Okay. Well, if there are no other questions this evening, this concludes the town hall for the STR. If you want to come ask me questions in person, I will remain here at your leisure, and I'm more than happy to talk with you all. Thank you so much for coming out. This was actually very good. I feel like this was very informative and collaborative, and and I have Mr. Cowie coming to the front. Okay, closing remarks. He'll take it away.
So thanks, Bill, for a great job. Again, as we've said, we're very customer friendly. Besides the short-term rental, any development questions, inspection requests. Again, James Development Services, we have 2 planners in the back, and Corey talking about, is also very important. We're really trying to get as much public engagement, friends, neighbors, anybody in the city. We're in the process of updating our comprehensive land use plan, which is a foundation for future development of the city. We have Casa Chapala tomorrow, open house from 6 to 8, so kind of come and go. We'll have maps, drawings, community engagement, and then we have one more next Wednesday, January 29th from 6 to 8 p.m. at the library. So again, we have some flyers back there. It's on our website, Facebook page. Again, any community engagement y'all can help us with is greatly appreciated.
Yes, sir, Mr. Moss. Okay, he's coming to the mic. All right.
I'm going to give you a reason to do this, and one of the big reasons is liability issues. Because of the fact that, you know, if you're doing Airbnb and doing VRBO, they do have insurance. Cannot hear? Can you hear now? All right. So VRBO and also Airbnb does have insurance. But if you're renting it out without that, you really don't. You need to really take a look at your homeowner's insurance to make absolutely sure you're covered. So the downside of the city putting your name out there for Visit Bastrop, for them to directly connect you with them, you got to keep in mind that that may be a liability issue that you have, and you're definitely going to have a tax liability there. You have to collect the tax for the state, the county, and the city, and you have to pay it individually, because with Airbnb, VRBO, they collect the state tax and pay it for you. They don't collect the county, they don't collect the city. But so if you're going to do it offline of them, and you're responsible for the other side of that too. Just a couple of things to point out.
All right.
Okay. All right. All right, everyone. Well, thank you once again for coming out. I look forward to seeing y'all. We'll have some public hearings where this will move forward for adoption. And we have an email that's available on Facebook if you think of questions after the fact that you want to shoot over to us. And we're more than happy to continue the conversation. Thank you.